This is the TK Radio Network.
Because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
If you've got health insurance, you like your doctor, you like your plan, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan.
Saddam Hussein has gone to elaborate lengths, spent enormous sums, taken great risks to build and keep weapons of mass destruction.
Did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
What difference at this point does it make?
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere.
And we're still looking for those weapons of mass destruction. But I'm sure they are somewhere. They're probably in North Korea right now. Well, welcome to Trust But Verify. It seems like every time I listen to our intro, I become more cynical, if that's possible. But in a positive way. I mean, I'm not cynical about everything. Just anything that comes out of Washington, D.C. Anyway, I'm the skipper, and as usual, with me tonight are Angela and Paul, and we're all actually healthy enough to do the show.
It's a miracle.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I'd have known I was going to live this long, you know how the rest of that story goes, I would have taken much better care of myself. Well, there's so much going on, and it's not like we ever run out of material. And we always try to look at the things that are going on in the background that you might see a little of it on in the news, but you don't see the full story. And we try to provide some of that, at least our version of it. And one of the interesting stories I saw this week, came from, believe it or not, Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel, the old never let a crisis go to waste. Wasn't that what he said? I can't remember.
Never let a good crisis go to waste. Yeah.
Yeah, man. If he's nothing else, he's consistent between he and his brother. Anyway, so they have a new ID program just in Chicago. You can get your very own Chicago ID, and it's specifically designed to ensure that illegal aliens in the city can receive welfare benefits with, as he says, minimal risk of repatriation. The way it protects the illegals from any kind of federal oversight is they have their own people that they're trained to interface with these illegals. And they come in, and the illegal comes in, and let's just assume I'm an illegal. I would be somewhere, I'm sure. And I come in with all my ID papers that I need to establish myself, as being qualified to get on food stamps, whatever it is that they provide. Well, they look at all my documents, and they then hand them back to me. And the only thing that goes in the record is just my name. I'm kind of re-looking at this. Not even an address. Not going to be any address on me. And I'll get an ID card. It sounds a little loose to me, but I don't know. Is that fair? Is that a reasonable way to do that? To protect? Is this, Anybody want to take that one?
I don't understand why criminals get to have this protection. I mean, by the very nature of them being here, as we all know, they are criminals. So I'm not understanding why we're going to these extraordinary lengths to protect them, other than the fact that it's Rahm Emanuel, and the progressives never want to let a good crisis go to waste. So I don't see how this is a constitutional maneuver. Actually, thinking back, going to Arizona when they had, what was it, their Proposition 9 or whatever that bill was when Jan Brewer was governor, and they were going to basically patrol their own borders and take their own measures to keep them out, and that was deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. So why is this constitutional when they're taking their own measures to do what they want?
I don't know, Paul, you got any ideas on that?
Yeah, it's kind of weird to me because, if it's based on city services, which I believe it is, I just don't see how it would be unconstitutional or, it's their city tax dollars. So to me, it's a little, if that's what they want to do with them, they're already, billions in the hole with their pension plans. Do they just want to, throw more money away? But apparently they're taking kind of a California approach to this and just keep piling it in. So, it's I think I just don't see the constitutional issue in it being at such a local level. If you have more and more cities jumping on and there's a more organized program behind it, maybe at that point, yes. But this is local politics to me. Even though it does definitely encourage the illegals to stay in and flock there, essentially, if you're going to get all that for really no identification. It's a pretty good deal for them, but
that's what they're trying to do. I mean, it's pretty clear. I'll read this other paragraph, a brief one. The clerk's office also claims to be working with cultural institutions, sports teams, pharmacies, local chambers of commerce, and community organizations to explore potential discounts and partnerships for these people that have this ID card. I mean, it's like one of those old JC ID card things you could, coupon books you could get years ago.
It's like the passbook or something.
Yeah, and an oil change. You could get an oil change. All right. So who does this benefit? Obviously, it benefits the illegals. The cities is going to become another magnet. I mean, California has become a huge magnet, but the city's going to become a magnet for illegals, which is okay with me. But who benefits? People that want low-wage workers, I guess, right? Who else would benefit?
I can't think of anybody. But I'm kind of biased on the matter, so I can't really think of it.
I think the Democrat Party would ultimately benefit, handing this out, especially if if there's some kind of mass amnesty going to happen. I mean, it seems kind of what they're banking on, I suppose. But they would probably be the winners in that equation. But that's the only real benefit I see to it, other than just purely making a political advertisement.
Well, there is one other aspect to this that is often overlooked in this country, and that is the size and impact of the illegal immigrant economy. Those people all have to buy stuff, and politicians don't care if the money's not there. I mean, they'll find a way to fabricate it. But look at all the people that live off of if you took all the illegal immigrants out of Chicago, look at how many businesses would go under, and not just your local taqueria. I'm talking about restaurants and all kinds of places, automobile dealerships, you name it. It would be impacted. So those people who profit from that economy, Walmart, does that ring a bell? Places like that market themselves, to people that are low wage earners. Grocery stores, and just think of the hit on the retail grocery market in Chicago, or pick any city practically, if all those people went away. So by bringing more people in, you're infusing that market with more potential money. Now I'm willing to entertain any arguments against that. That's just one thing. I
think that's true. I don't think you're going to necessarily though have the offset for the taxes. You're not getting those now, I'm sure, to the full extent. Just because you have somewhat of an underground economy going on. If you're hiring illegals, you're probably paying them off the books too. At the best, you're going to be paying them under a false social security number or a stolen one. So, you're not reaping, the full tax benefit of this economy. I mean, you're moving money around the private sector, definitely.
Well, go ahead, Angie. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, but aren't they also, at this rate, are they not, well, I suppose they're already there, but they're encouraging more to come with this, and are they not sort of putting more burden on their social services, their schools, their welfare systems? I mean, what Walmart may gain, Chicago is a city in financial dire straits, so I don't know. I mean, is that something to consider with this ID, or since they're already there, it doesn't really factor in?
Well, that's what you said initially. Where's it going to come from? And that's a good point. And why aren't the taxpayers, aren't the corporations and the middle class and employed people of all classes that are here legally. Why aren't they, down there at the courthouse or at the governor's mansion raising Cain? Or wait a minute, this is the city. I'll get this right in a minute. Why aren't they at Rom's house? I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So, but these people do.
They feel that they're very. Well, I was just going to say they feel that they're very progressive and they're very, giving towards their fellow man. That's how they justify their emotional arguments for everything that they do. It's well, we're good people. You're just mean. You just want the rich. So that's how they, these people in Chicago, New York, the big cities, they sort of flock together, and that's how they justify all of these actions to protect this, well, frankly, criminal class. They may not all be hardened criminals, but they are criminals.
Well, and I think Rahm Emanuel could be mayor of Chicago for the rest of his life if this thing goes through, because of all the good things he's done for these people. A little bit of tongue in cheek there, but
the descending like a rock crime rate.
yeah, but that just affects some people. Okay, so there's no federal law that's out there that I could find, and obviously I didn't do an extensive search, but that appears to require keeping this personal information from a city. I mean, the city's the one that's doing this, like you were saying, Paul. Unless they were using federal dollars for these benefits, in which case the feds may get involved, and this is how they do it. What if they were wanted an audit? All that's on the record is a name. Let me see. Let me look at this again. I keep reading it, and I keep saying I can't believe it. A name and a birthday. That's it.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely ripe for fraud. But again, I mean, if it's local money and that's what they want to do with it, be my guest. I mean, it's kind of dumb to me, but and I suppose you're going to get some. At some point, you could probably, trace some of the incoming money that they're using back to a state or a federal grant or something, somehow, if you were to really start digging through, the accounts. But, even then, I think that the trail would be such a twisted mess, you'd never be able to definitively say you were using anything other than local money in a setup like this.
Yeah, because all it says, this article just says they receive welfare benefits, and there's usually matching money coming from the federal government.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to, Angie, if you were working for the federal government, and I'm sorry to even bring that up and associate you with that, but anyway, if you were and you were an auditor, you might look askance at this system, because how in the world would you know what you were auditing, who you were auditing? No addresses, just a bunch of names and birthdays.
Well, you could have every worldwide fugitive going to Chicago now.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, and living off the welfare system of Chicago.
I don't know, Paul. Maybe we need to start painting up billboards. Chicago, 600 miles that direction.
Yeah.
I mean, have at it. Don't come here. I'm good, fine. But I just, let's
get the word out.
Well, I hate to ask the should questions because it's kind of silly in most cases, but should this be legal? I mean, if you're a taxpayer in Chicago and they're just saying, "Hey, trust us, we're going to spend all these millions of dollars on well, I better be careful what I say, on all these people, and we only have a name, and a birthday, and Paul, you're working in Chicago and paying a pretty confiscatory tax rate just to be in Illinois. Are you going to feel like that's a legal way to go, or are you going to think there's something smelly about it?
Well, I'm definitely not going to like it. I mean, but it's really up to the taxpayers to say stop, enough. Don't do it. Again, if they're using strictly local funds, the people are putting, the constituents are putting the people in office that are, making those decisions, and maybe they need to think about putting someone else in there. I mean, how else do you stop something like that? Other than it being so blatantly illegal that the press and everybody else descends upon it. But I mean, this just doesn't seem to smell like that. I mean, they're handing out local money on a wing and a prayer. I mean, so be it.
Or some money from somewhere.
Some money.
Some money
from somewhere. And I think that I'll go off in the weeds just for a second to try to make a point. But one of the things that made Sigmund Freud bulletproof was he came up with these crazy ideas, and about his ego, super ego, and dreams, and how much how much you desired your mother, Oedipus, all that stuff. And if anybody attacked his theories, he had this other whole category. It was like a perimeter, and he called them defense mechanisms. And so if I said, Freud, you're crazy, he would just say, you're just projecting your craziness onto me, or you know how this goes. Everybody's read enough pop psychology to know what I'm talking about. Well, they've kind of created that here. They've created a system whereby you can't go in and look at it. I mean, it's about as close to airtight as you can get in terms of no light rays. I should say, so obtuse, no light rays can get in there, and nobody's going to be able to audit it. It just absolutely will not be able. We're going to have to take the word of these, as they call them, specially trained individuals who are reviewing the documents. Now, here's another question I have, and I always scratch my head about this, and I wish I could get an answer. But if I'm a specially trained individual, and you come in, and I can tell by your paperwork that you're here illegally, am I not required to turn in someone that's breaking the law? Is there? I mean, I know you have to do it if it involves abuse of a child, but
are you? I mean, if it's not a law enforcement official, and they'd be fools to make it part of a law enforcement function.
But the question is, because that person, are they liable for charges if they know they have illegals coming and going there, and they're actually processing the documents day to day, and they know they've got a bunch of illegals, people breaking the law in this country illegally. Are they not required?
No, I would think that would fall. I think that would fall further up the food chain. That's going to me, that should really live with the policymakers who are putting that into effect, not the guy at the desk who's checking the papers.
But they'll say, "Hey, I didn't see the papers. That guy was there behind that desk, especially trained, wearing the badge. He's the one that saw him. I didn't know."
It's just everybody's going to be pointing in the other direction, saying it's not my responsibility, and then it just nothing happens.
Well, sure.
So.
Yeah, that's just a question I had. It always bothers me because it comes up time and time again when you see it with employers. I may have said this on a program at one point in time, but Joan had a patient one time who was applying for a job, and when she gave a Social Security card, the lady said, well, there's like 5 other people on your Social Security card, using your name. And I'll just make up a name. Her name was Joan, okay? And everybody that was using it had male names. Well, somebody had to know, when they accepted that Social Security card in that name that this person was breaking the law. Somebody, it's like somebody needs to be culpable on some level. I just don't see it, and I don't know where you can actually reach in and hold people accountable. Well, clearly this promotes fraud and abuse. No big surprise, it's Chicago, and they're clearly building a large illegal immigrant community, or at least that's what their intention is, subsidizing it with tax dollars from somewhere. We don't know where. So we've decided we're not really sure what the end game is. Why does anybody want that? And, maybe we covered all the possibilities already. Well, Democrat Representative Luis Gutierrez from Illinois. Imagine that.
Louis Gutierrez.
Gutierrez. Okay, I didn't know. I knew I wasn't saying it. My Texas thick-tongued trouble. Okay, so his comment is, sanctuary cities are Fourth Amendment cities.
Yes.
She's saying it's more accurate to say that we're really just protecting the Fourth Amendment, the rights, prohibiting unreasonable searches and seizures by the government unless the government obtains a warrant. Now, I went back and reread the Fourth Amendment, and I see all kinds of holes in his reasoning. But he goes on to say the DEA, FBI, ATF, they all get warrants. So why is ICE allowed to, just go in, or expects us to turn these people over to them so they can go in without a warrant and without probable cause? And he's saying if you supply a warrant, hey, we'll absolutely honor that warrant, if you can figure out how to get one. But how are you going to know? How's ICE going to know if they hide all this information, if that's their intention? You can't do probable cause if they don't give you the information you need, to find probable cause. It just seems a little screwy, but once again, that is Lewis. Now, but is there any legitimacy to that? I mean, is there any legitimacy for a city or a state bucking up against the federal establishment and saying, we're just not going to turn over personal information about the people that reside in our state unless you can come up with a warrant signed by a judge forcing us to do that? Is there any merit to that?
Well, this is sort of why I was going to, when we were first talking about this, about the constitutional issues, was because of Representative Gutierrez. They like to pick and choose the Constitution. They like to point to it and twist it when it suits their needs, but when real constitutional issues are brought up, they suddenly, no, that's not how it works, or whatever. So, I mean, I suppose it would depend on the scenario. If this guy's walking down the street and you've got his information right in front of you, his pictures and whatnot, and say, this man is an illegal, he should not be here, and he's got, whatever, we know that he was, shipped out and he came back again and he's right there. What kind of warrant does one need? I mean, because I don't know. There's so many variables here to sort of play with. So is every situation that they're going to their house and they're kicking them out of the state? Or I'm sorry.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think what he's saying is that they're, when they know they have someone that's illegal, they're not notifying ICE and saying, hey, right, we got this guy in county lockup or the city jail or even state facility. Here in Texas, at least the way it's done in the county that resides between Paul and I, is, once a jail books somebody in, and once they determine an identity, they know if the person's there legally or illegally. I mean, they can ascertain that. And if they aren't there legally, then they notify ICE, and then they go through whatever they have to go through. Transfer papers, whatever they do, but they notify them. They say, okay, we have identified this person as a fugitive, because that's exactly what someone is, right, if they're in this country illegally. And we know that they fall under your jurisdiction. We have them here because they, were drunk and ran off the road or whatever reason they're there. And we'll let you know when we're going to turn them loose. Or we may want to turn them loose right now because we don't want to spend the money on peanut butter sandwiches at lunch. So, but that's what Chicago and Illinois, I guess in general, what they're not willing to do is they're not willing to take that step and so they're releasing these people from their jails, and we know what happens. I mean, we know what happened just 2-3 days ago when that Mexican national that's here illegally ran into that family of 3, ran a stop sign.
Right.
And so we know that there are victims as a result of this. So, this kind of, I agree it's a little sketchy, a little hard. There may be instances where the Fourth Amendment comes in, but I agree with you, Angela. They do want to pick and choose, what they can use. Now, Jeff Sessions, said I guess a couple of weeks ago by now, that they're not going to get any money. That he's saying the state and local government seeking Justice Department grants, and that's, by the way, billions of dollars a year.
Right.
Or they have to certify that they're not sanctuary cities. They're not going to get the money. So he's saying, compliance with federal immigration laws is a prerequisite to get that money. So, So they're shielding criminals from detection and arrest. As far as I'm concerned, that's a crime in and of itself, isn't it? Am I missing something here?
No, and I'm not being very articulate, and I do apologize, but that's sort of where I've been trying to get to in my roundabout, not very clear way. But that's where I've been trying to get to since the beginning of the conversation. They're shielding criminals. They are not following proper, immigration procedures with ICE and other law enforcement agencies. They expect, and it's the same way with San Francisco, and they expect in the state of California in general, and they expect all of their federal dollars to come to them, but they want to pick and choose. It's just they're breaking the law. The individual is by being here in the first place. They are breaking the law. They are living off the system. They are abusing the system. But are they really abusing a system where the mayor and the city as a whole are allowing this to continue? So at that point, does the mayor and the city government not become culpable for any and all crimes committed by these people, or any and all violations, or lack of following established processes to deal with such people?
Well, and that was kind of what I was trying to get at in the last segment with, you don't want the people, in the instance of Chicago, taking the papers and, putting the name and the birth date in the system. You don't want them to get the hit on, shielding these folks. You want to get the policymakers. So, we're kind of hitting that same feedback loop where everybody's going to be pointing a different direction.
Right.
Oh, and it wasn't me. I didn't see what was put in the computer. I didn't see the guy's papers. So,
And in the meantime, these are the same people who were screaming about that Kim Davis woman who didn't want to sign off on gay marriages in Kentucky because she didn't follow procedure, and that's the law. But these people aren't following procedure, and that's the law. So again, there's picking and choosing. There's, your religion doesn't factor in, apparently, or your religious beliefs are no longer, part of the equation if it's your job. Oh, but I feel bad for these people because they come from a terrible life, back home. So we want to keep them here, and that's more important than anything else. It's just.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, religions, these religious organizations are. As we talked about a few weeks ago, they're behind all. They're in support of this. They have sanctuary churches. They have the Underground Railroad now set up in a lot of places like that. So, if you want to assuage your moral guilt, you can do that. Just pick a religion. Just about most of them are collar deep in this sort of thing. So A.G. Sessions says this. He said. These sanctuary policies make our nation less safe by putting dangerous criminals back on the streets. The opponents say, but enforcing these immigration laws are going to hurt law enforcement because undocumented immigrants would not come forward with information to report crimes. How many decades have we heard that argument? They're just not going to come out of the shadows and tell you that they got hit over the head if we don't let them stay here illegally. So it seems to me like Sessions he's stating an irrefutable fact. I don't think you can argue against his comment. And these people that are proponents of the sanctuary cities they're stating an assumption. We're assuming this is going to happen. Now the solution, I think three of us would have a hard time not coming up with the same solution on this. And I think President Trump's trying to get there. I know that Pete Sessions is. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, shifting over to this, we were just talking about this, and I don't know if our engineer is knee deep in duct tape right now, but what rights do illegals have under the Constitution? And I'll just read this little paragraph. Extracted from all these different articles. The court ruled in Almeida Sanchez versus United States in 1973 that all criminal charge related elements of the Constitution's amendments, 1st, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 14th, such as search and seizure, self-incrimination, trial by jury, and due process, protect non-citizens legally or illegally present. So, well, that left the door open to a lot of interpretation on a lot of different amendments there.
Yeah.
It just seems to open the floodgates to the entire world to me.
Yeah. Very much so.
We're applying the Constitution to everybody everywhere.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And,
well, that's the enemy combatants in Guantanamo. Isn't that the big sort of
Sure. Oh,
discussion
absolutely.
or the big complaint? Was I don't necessarily believe that these gentlemen who have never set foot in many cases in our country, but are at Guantanamo. I suppose you could call that our country, by definition, because it's a piece of land we have. But why do they get to have the same rights as somebody that was born here, raised here, pays their taxes, and is a good American citizen? So, am I wrong? I don't.
A little bit.
Okay.
Slightly. All right. So, speaking in terms of legalities in the Constitution refers to people inside of the United States. So people in Guantanamo, the reason why they're in Guantanamo is because they're outside of the United States and therefore don't have the luxury of being granted the civil protections that the Constitution has. That being said, our Constitution is not a grantor of rights. It is a acknowledgement of rights that already exist.
Correct.
So
but
if you are here illegally or legally, it does not matter. You are and do enjoy human rights, and the Constitution does in fact protect those rights. So if you are here illegally, you have a right to due process. But you're still here illegally, and you need to go because you have broken our laws. I don't know how we could argue that you don't have rights, because to argue that you don't have rights would be to argue that government is the grantor of those rights. You have those prior to our Constitution. So if you break our law, you have to go through due process. In the case of illegal immigration, the due process means sticking you on a bus and sending you home.
Well, the due process. Anyway, to the Guantanamo point, real quick. You say that those don't apply or whatever, but that's been part of the thing. And I know I'm going off in a different direction, but that was part of Eric Holder and everybody else's argument. Everybody on the left, they do too get our rights. That's why they were reading. That's why they were reading Miranda rights on the battlefield.
Yeah, no. See, the Constitution is a protection of rights that you already exist, but you are not protected under those rights outside of the United States. You may still retain those rights elsewhere, but you're not protected by our Constitution.
Well, that's what you say, but there are legal arguments to the contrary.
No,
that's my point.
They're not.
No, stop saying no. Yes, they were making those arguments.
Yes, I understand they were making those arguments, and their arguments are fallacious. They're wrong.
One of the and we do have them there for that reason, in my understanding, and I agree. Here, I'll patch this little argument up. I agree, Angela. That's why they wanted to get them to the U.S. So that's why they were so intent on moving those people into the country, because once they got on the continental United States, got on U.S. soil, then they had everything. The whole enchilada opened up to them. But once again, it's just sort of like under the when President Bush was in, they did away with habeas corpus, right? I mean, they can just sweep you away. They don't have to tell anybody they've got you. You don't get a lawyer. There's all kinds of things. Right. But if they're going to do that, they can't do it here. They have to take you somewhere else, and that's my understanding. They never were able to close Gitmo down for that exact reason, and because they had to keep some of those people.
Yeah, nobody wanted them in their town either. So
nobody was going to take that on.
No, although what was it? Wasn't there something? Was it Chicago? Someplace.
It was New York City. It was huge. Yeah, it was a huge big deal, and people freaked out. I mean, just the cost of the shutting down streets and the security alone just to get them from the to the courthouse every day for trial. And Eric Holder's whole argument on that was bizarre. He's like, I'm not going to let this man tell me how to run my the Justice Department, and I'm not going to give him what he wants. But the thing was, that is what he wanted. He wanted to come to New York to be tried, where the 9/11 attack happened. So,
well, the with the big, I can't think of the sweep anywhere where they brought in all the illegals. few hundred of them across several different states. They did something interesting in that ICE denied access to immigration lawyers. Because what happened was they were, I think it was L.A. In fact, I'm 100% sure it was L.A. They picked up like 160 people. And one day, an immigration lawyers heard about it. They just swarmed into the area. And they were just, as the article said, rebuffed by ICE. And those people were, now whether they eventually had an opportunity to do something about that, I don't know. But they weren't allowed to just go in and get involved right away with these people. So, Mike, there were comments about how that was, not constitutional. So we're kind of back to that argument. But anyway, ICE had them, and that was kind of the end of that. Now there are two strategies that are going on right now that you kind of talk about. One is you have organizations like La Raza, and their strategy is to clog up the immigration courts they have billboards and advertisements everywhere. A lot of them paid for by wealthy people in Mexico, saying, "Hey, you have rights. If you get swept up in this, you demand a lawyer and you fight this in court, and they'll be, they'll just clog up the courts. You get to go home." Well, that was the case under the former president and Eric Holder, but it's not the case now. The case now is they're expediting a lot of these hearings, and what they're saying to people as they picked me up, they said, "Okay, Pablo, you have two choices here. We're going to hold you on charges that we have on you, and we're going to keep you here until you can get before an immigration judge sometime in 2019, or Pablo, we can put you on a bus and send you back to wherever, and then you can take another run at the place, if you want to." But what they're doing by doing that is a lot of people are opting for that now. It's my understanding they're going, that looks pretty good. Staying in here doesn't look too good. I can't make any money for my family. I can't run drugs, whatever it is I was doing. So
I can't run drugs.
Can't run drugs here. No job openings for a prison mule. But anyway, they're getting out, and then they're sending them back. Now, without a wall, that's probably not going to help us a lot. Everything you read is, I think it just got 100 people in one sector. Was it this last week, or maybe this last month, that were sex offenders that they captured that got back into the country? But anyway, that's the plan from La Raza and these other organizations. And the counter plan from Sessions and Immigration is, we're going to give them an option. We'll see if they really want to wait around here, in Tent City and wait for that immigration judge. He's probably not going to see him for a long, 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 long time. So pretty smart thinking, I believe.
Yeah, I think that sends a message. I think the not having the immediate access to a lawyer was sending a message as well. They're just, maybe they're not playing around as much as they were. Though the Obama administration did deport quite a few people, just didn't get that much attention.
Yeah, they did. The numbers weren't that bad, actually. It's just that they facilitated the entry of so many more.
Exactly.
So,
well, we deported 20,000, but we let in 1 million. So
yeah, the billboards facing Mexico were a lot more promising than the ones. Yeah. Okay, so what do you think? Is it a reasonable plan to empty out at least 25-30% of the people in our prisons are illegals? Should we just empty the prisons out and send them all back to wherever the heck they came from and save that money and try to catch them before they get back in here? Or should that depend on what they're in there?
You're not going to save any money doing that, because all that money's going to flow to, you're going to have to flow right back to, if not border enforcement, law enforcement, as they circle back around and start coming back through. To me anyway, from my perspective, it'd be a lot worse to serve out my time and then get deported than it would be to, just get let go early and, sent back to my country of origin, I mean, that's not such a terrible deal versus, prison time, at least it seems to me. And you definitely don't want to take the really hardened ones out because, I mean, they're not going to give a damn. I mean, they're going to head straight back, and then they're going to be loose on the street. So that doesn't seem like any kind of a solution.
No.
I mean, I don't want to shut down the discussion, but, man, I'm just not seeing it on that one.
Yeah, I think that's a problem. I made a little note, without a wall, deportation is not going to work anyway, at least not to the degree. And if we could get cooperation from our neighbor to the south and even further south, and, we might have a better
it's not
shot.
in their best interest. I mean, there's too much money going back. They don't want to deal with those people. They got enough, enough violent criminals on their hands. They don't want any more flooding their system. Even another 20 or 30,000 being injected into Mexico is, it's not going to improve the situation any with the cartels taking over large parts of the country. I mean, just going to give, more foot soldiers. So, I mean, there's kind of a Faustian bargain going on here with all of this,
Well, initially when Donald Trump was running to be President Trump, he said, we're going to just deport them all. I mean, and that's you can't run for president and say, I'm going to deport 43% of them. You gotta go for the whole enchilada.
Yeah, it's campaign.
Campaign
exactly.
But, the word on the street now, from what I'm reading, is that that's exactly what they're looking at doing. For example, this little lady, Guadalupe Garcia de Reyes, however you say that, she was checking in. She was just checking in like she was supposed to, and they picked her up, and they're sending her back. She's a mother of two, and she hadn't committed any crimes except, of course, she came here illegally. And there was this other one. She falsified her identification on a social security card. So maybe those people are going to get caught. Maybe they're going to get sent back.
Yeah, I mean that's identity theft. I mean,
seems like
come
it.
on. I mean, no matter how you try to sugarcoat it, no matter what the intention behind it was, the law is. I mean, that's pretty much identity theft. You're taking someone's ID, and they're especially with Social Security. I mean, everything's tied to that. I mean, and that's probably the most concerning aspect of any kind of government ID scheme at this point is just how loose everything is with Social Security.
Yeah,
it's good for Social Security. Well, if you think about it.
Oh, sure, it keeps a lot of investigators employed. Keeps everything moving. Keeps a lot of stuff obscured. I'm sure too. If you're chasing after dozens of petty things, or at least attempting to look like you're chasing after dozens of petty crimes versus major crimes.
It helps them in another even more important way, though. If you have Joan's client and 5 other people paying into her Social Security account, but only one of those people is going to be able to draw on it, you got a great Ponzi scheme. You got a Ponzi scheme plus 2 going on. And so that I've believed for a long time that one of the reasons politicians, didn't really want to bear down on this whole identity theft thing and employers hiring illegals is they were getting all that money into the tax base.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, that's a good point. But there's a flip side to that too, because there's and I don't have any kind of firm numbers on it, but I do know from experiences I've had with people I know that you also have the opposite going on where someone goes to fill out their 1040 EZ at the end of the year and suddenly find out they owe an extra 25 or 30 grand because somebody's been using their social security number and reporting income but not paying in. Right. It's probably a far smaller number than its converse, but still, I mean, it's it's out there. And if you're a victim of that, I mean, that's a big deal.
It's a pain in the butt.
If they're employed, if they're, say, employed by a regular employer, then it's going to be coming out automatically. But if they're self-employed and they're filing taxes,
if you're doing a 1099, if you're employed under a 1099, or those are getting declared under a 1099 to your Social Security number, you wouldn't know till the end of the year it was going on when the tax statements started rolling in. Chances are they're not rolling to your house through the mail. They're going somewhere else. And you're in for a hell of a surprise when you get the letter back, a month or two after you file that, you owe a bunch of extra money. I mean, that could be, potentially devastating for someone.
And the other thing is if 6 of us are filing on Social Security, filing taxes, what if one of the wrong 6, got that tax return if there was one? And that's happening a lot. I've been reading about
sure.
Tax returns are going to the wrong people, and now it gets rectified, but it only gets rectified and that the government ends up making up the difference, if they can't find the person that absconded with the money. Well, what about this concept of mixed status families? Little Guadalupe had 2 kids, and they were here legally. They were born here. We know how that goes. And I don't know about her husband, or if she had one. But anyway, so now you got a mixed status family. The kids don't have a mama. Is there room to say, well, maybe we shouldn't focus on those people so much as use the resources to sweep up some of the the other more the bad actors? Should that even be a consideration?
Well, I think there should be a prioritization placed on any kind of violent crime and or property crimes, including things like identity theft. I mean, that should be a higher priority than just you catch somebody walking down the street and that's a mother of 2 citizens when she's not. I'm less concerned about that person than I am about someone committing fraud or aggravated assault or what have you, murder. That's the person I think would naturally be prioritized. But are they being? Or are they just getting swept up in the net too? And there's no real. I don't know if there's any kind of actual movement or coordination to really catch some of the at least the mid-level and lower bad actors.
I think they're fishing. I think they're going to courthouses. They find out that somebody's got a court date, or you just go to a courthouse and I know in this county it wouldn't take you too long to run into someone that's probably of questionable citizenship that's up there for something. Well, here, let's look at this. The 161 people that were arrested in Southern California, only 10 didn't have criminal records, and 5 of those had prior deportation orders, so they were here doubly illegally, I guess. They were here illegally, and then they were told to leave, and they didn't. So now I don't know what the criminal records were. This article didn't break it down, but I don't know, Angie. You got a family. You got a little girl. Do you think a mom, her situation should be? It isn't going to change whether she's guilty or not, but should that be considered extenuating, mitigating circumstances?
I don't think so. And this always reminds me of Norway, for example. The Bernie Sanders crowd likes to point to places like Norway and the socialist sort of Nordic countries. And in Norway, for example, they will let you come in if you are going to be a migrant worker for X amount of time. And it's a smaller population in a very obedient country. But they generally know where these people are, and they stay in designated places for picking. The farm growers have these guys are picking and processing and whatnot. They stay in designated dormitoriums and whatnot, and then when their season is done, they head home. For the people who come here to immigrate to immigrate legally, they have to prove, and this is how we used to be, they have to prove that they would benefit the culture, the society. If after a year they cannot benefit the culture, they can't find a job, they've not done basically what they were supposed to do with that year, and they are not allowed to just go find an apartment and live there. They have to go and live in sort of like what we have the, not detention centers, but the dormitory situation where they stay until they can be assimilated into society. If they do not meet the criteria laid out when they first got there, they are deported back. If they are here and they have family that came with them, the entire family is deported back at the government's expense. It gives them no reason to come back to the country at that point. For the ones that come there illegally and they have family that may have been there legally, the family will also go back. They don't want these people to have any reason to come back to the country. So I do not understand how they can point to the Bernie and the progressive types, the socialist types, can point to places like Norway and say, this is perfect, look how great it is. And then say that we're this awful place when we're just sort of letting people in, or we're just saying, oh, stay here, you can be a rapist, you can be a drunk driver with 15 vehicular homicides on your rap sheet and so on. Places like Norway, they have a finite number of resources. They are very well aware of it. And if you cannot assimilate and meet the criteria to stay, you're sent back, and so is your whole family. So to your original point, is that a mitigating circumstance? No, send them back. So the whole family can go back, and it's the humane way to deal with it. Because I always talk about it's inhumane when we separate families and whatnot. Well, it's inhumane. They came here knowing that was is a potential, that they could have divided their family and one of them could be sent back. Well, that was inhumane. So let us be the kinder and gentler ones, and we'll send you all back. Have at it. Goodbye. We'll send you on a nice plane too.
You're a proponent for intact families, it sounds like to me.
Yes, I absolutely am. I believe in a core family structure.
Well, as we probably remember, not so fondly, when President Obama was in, and they decided to change the definition of a criminal alien, and they left a whole lot of things out. I mean, if you were a murderer, definitely, you're a criminal alien. But if you're a drunk driver, you weren't.
Right.
There were several things. Petty theft didn't count. There were just a host of things that's changed. I'm just reading this paragraph, and I'll just read it to you. It says, Trump has redefined who could be labeled a criminal alien. Under his order, the definition of criminality was expanded to include misdemeanors, like illicitly crossing the border. It also expanded the definition for immigrants to be considered priorities for deportation. Foreigners who have committed acts that constitute a chargeable criminal offense are priorities even before conviction. That's interesting, isn't it? It also includes those who have committed fraud or willful misrepresentation in connection with any official matter or application before a government agency, a category that includes using fake Social Security numbers to work, and that's how Guadalupe got booted. Oh. Sound fair? Sound reasonable?
I think so.
Yeah, I really don't have much of an issue with that. It's like I was saying before. You need some prioritization. Apparently, they have some. I don't know that. I think there's probably some at least higher level misdemeanors that I'd probably lump in there if they're not already. But otherwise, that sounds like pretty cut and dry to me. If you're committing fraud, you're committing fraud. To me, that's a big issue. Is fraud, even though it's not violent. A lot of people like to claim there's no victim. A lot of times they say it's a victimless crime, but that's crap. There's always a victim.
Right.
Yeah, sure there is, and you don't have to look too far to find them. I found this other little tidbit I didn't know, but it's heartening to read. People who have already been slated for deportation by a judge can be removed without further due process. In other words, you had your day in court, hombre, and you lost, so we're not going to go through that again. We're just going to put you on the bus, the plane, or whatever. So that's when they round those people up. And we have a lot of people here that have overstayed visas, and automatically they're just, boom, they're gone, or should be gone. At least in this case, it would be. And that agencies in that expedited removal procedures I talked about, getting detainees to accept quick deportation seems to be working. And the other thing is working is these people are starting to really love Canada. And I'm thinking this spring and summer, there'll be even more of them leaving the heat of Texas anyway, heading north. So we'll see.
Yeah, they're going to be real surprised when they hit that Canadian border, though, and they find out what the Canadians' immigration rules are. They're way stricter than ours.
Mm-hmm. Most people's are.
In Canada, you have to have money to you have to have the ability to sustain yourself. I mean, you have to be like Angela's saying with Norway. I mean, you have to be a productive citizen. It's not a quick process. We'll see if Trudeau, loosens any of that up. But I mean, they've got fairly long-standing legal precedents on how they let people in, and it's not nearly as open-armed as the U.S.'s policy by any means.
No, and most people don't have any birthright citizenship. Most people,
Right.
You can't just go off and be lost into the system. But I think, and I'll just make this one sentence, and Skipper, you can say what you're going to. All of this is showing me what I've thought all along, everything we're talking about. We're not dealing with the bigger issue. Our immigration policy system for letting people in, how long it takes, what the process is to get here, the cost, and so on, that's the broken piece. And we're not dealing with any of that. And there, to me, is the biggest problem of all.
Yeah, I think you're right, too. And I'll say one quick thing before we get to this last section. When people always talk about we're a nation of immigrants, but I know my family got here in the 1600s, and part of them, some of them dribbled in later, but you didn't just come over here. You came over here, you were sponsored, which meant that you had to work off your passage and whatever else. So it's not like you could just wander in and the local village was going to take care of you. They'd point to the woods and say, go find something to eat or kill something and, cook it yourself. There were no welfare systems, and that's one of our biggest problems right now. Well, let me get to this last thing because I know we're getting kind of close to the end. Alabama Republican Representative Mike Rogers introduced legislation this week that would require illegal immigrants to pay for the southern border wall. Now, according to this article, the bill would charge a 2% fee on all wire transfers to the home country of illegal immigrants. So it says anyone who sends their money to countries that benefit from our porous borders and illegal immigration should be responsible for providing some of the funds needed to complete the wall. I kind of like the idea, but I don't like the idea. Number one, we're back to, okay, you're going to select certain countries. Somebody's going to file a lawsuit right off the bat saying you're discriminating. So it's not going to fly. And the other issue I have, Paul, I don't know how you'll come down on this, but aren't we sort of incentivizing keeping these people here if we're going to be tapping them for 2%?
Well, that, and here's the other thing I think is the third issue, and probably one of my biggest issues, other than the incentivization to keep them here to collect that money. But to me, it's almost a bigger issue that, you're just building another layer of federal bureaucracy to run all this crap. And I mean, come on. How many people? Oh, absolutely, because you're going to have to oversee the program. I mean, it's not going to be. I mean, it's going to, whatever you take in it's going to eat itself under the guise of we need people to run this program. They're not going to integrate it with anything they already have. I mean, it's just another, another way to build the federal workforce.
You're a real mood killer, that. Well, I have to agree with you. Also, I you know what? I'm smart enough. I could figure out that I'll open up an account in some country that isn't on this list, and I'll wire my money there, and I'll get my family to on that account.
Yeah, you're gonna create a whole lot of jobs over there because there's gonna be dozens of them seconds after that bill goes into effect.
Yeah, well, I want to say this last little thing. I think we have a minute. The Newark mayor, I'm trying to find the guy's name, Ross Baraka. Well, I got too close to another name, didn't it? He said President Donald Trump's administration's threat to withhold federal funding from sanctuary cities was trying to intimidate them into becoming fugitive slave catchers.
How are these people slaves?
Well, okay. They're targeting targeting these cities, and they're telling the people that run there for sanctuary that they have to send them back. Remember in the South that there were laws that if a slave escaped.
No, I understand, but I do not agree with his correlation. These people are, and if you're calling them slaves because they're working for slave labor, then that's just another point of why they shouldn't be here. They're being abused by the system, and nobody's doing anything to stop the abuse from the employers and whatnot. They're just trying to uphold the law, the Trump administration trying to uphold the law and saying, well, you don't just get the free money if you're not upholding the law. But anyway, sorry.
You're kind of a stickler for definitions, aren't you? Like
I am.
You and Paul. I don't know.
What matters?
What happened to you two in the last 2 weeks? You used to be so easy to get along with. Well, we are running out of time, and boy, this hour went quickly. I keep looking at my clock, thinking there's something wrong with it, but it was good to be back, and
it was.
I hope it's good talking with everybody, and we'll see everyone else next week.
Yes,
Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks for joining.
Because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
If you've got health insurance, you like your doctor, you like your plan, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan.
Saddam Hussein has gone to elaborate lengths, spent enormous sums, taken great risks to build and keep weapons of mass destruction.
Did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
What difference at this point does it make?
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere.
This is the TK Radio Network.